Hey everybody! So today we're going to talk some more about the Galactic Center, specifically about the Super Galactic Center. But I want to start with my disclaimer that I am literally just fucking with astrology, especially when it comes to the Super Galactic Center. I mean, this is something that I have known exists. I have known that it exists. But this is something that I have not really dived into yet at all. Just because I feel like the Galactic Center should be dived into first, since it's in our galaxy. But I am aware that it exists. I do have some ideas about it. I mentioned some of them in the video that I did yesterday. But I'm literally just fucking with astrology here. Okay, so nobody take any of this and like run with it or think it's truth, or I'm saying I know what I'm talking about. Because, well, I feel like I have a decent handle on the GC in our galaxy. If you know, this is a whole, it's a similar animal, but it's a whole other thing. So I am not at all an expert on this thing at all. Not that I really claim to be an expert on anything. It's not really what I do. But anyway, so yesterday I was making the video and I was typing up a blog post to go with it. And I started thinking to myself, I wonder what we are dealing with in terms of how many people have squares right now to the Galactic Center. And mind you, the Super Galactic Center, right, it's for most of the people that we have charts for, it was going to be like at 29 degrees Libra to 0 degrees Libra, somewhere in that ballpark. But the square on the opposite end of things, right, the one that would be like at 29 degrees Pisces or 0 degrees Aries or what have you, also feels important. I do not know how to integrate that yet, because I don't know if there's a super galactic anti-center. I know there is a galactic anti-center in space, and I didn't make that up. That is a real thing. But I don't know if there's anything like that with the Super Galactic Center. I figure there's something. I feel like there probably is something. What that is, though, I don't know. That I'll have to explore more. But taking that into consideration, right? I was looking at squares to both, right? People that have squares on either end to the GC. Because I do think the opposition to the Super Galactic Center would matter. I think it probably will, just not sure how yet. So, and there are other people I want to also mention. There's been a little bit of an influx of people that have wanted to participate in the Galactic Center research. I have not started deciphering those charts or organizing those charts, so I'm still going off of the number of people from the last time I did any sort of tallying of stuff. I'm still going off of those numbers. I'll get to deciphering people's charts that they've sent in since this week, probably. So I'm still working off an old amount of people, if you will. But I was looking at how many people had squares to the Galactic Center, either in the Virgo or Libra portion or in the Pisces or Aries portion. And I came back with 53% have squares that would be in the Virgo Libra portion, actually conjunct the Super Galactic Center, actually conjunct that. And then I came back with 48% having something that would be conjunct what I'm thinking would be like the Super Galactic Anti-Center, or squaring the Galactic Center from Pisces Aries. There was some overlap. Some people, because like I said, I'm just starting to dip my feet into this. I didn't do any tallies of like what planets, how many planets, shit like that. I didn't even go into, I didn't do all that. I just did like little tally marks to count the people. Some people did seem to have things on both ends, like a conjunction to the Super Galactic Center and then a conjunction to what would be the anti-center. So 2 things squaring the GC, if you will. But that seems like it's not super low. So I think this is definitely something to explore more. I think it's something to explore more anyway, right? Oh, let me also mention the window of orb that I'm using. I'm using the same window of orb that I was for conjunctions to the GC. So it's a wide net right now. I'm looking at 10 degrees applying to 10 degrees separating from the Super Galactic Center when the person was born. Same thing with the whatever is opposite the Super Galactic Center. Same. That's the same window that I'm using too, just in Pisces and Aries. Now the Super Galactic Center moves a little quicker, so I think that's interesting too. This one moves faster. It's still slow, but it does move quicker than the GC seems to. I was thinking about it, like for instance, when I was born in November of 87. So the Super GC was at, was it 29:45 Virgo? And now, 33 years later, it's already in 2 degrees something Libra. So that's almost like a degree every 10 years, kind of. That's much faster that moves much faster than the GC, which stayed in the 26 degree window of Sagittarius for most of the 20th century. So that to me is interesting. I'm curious to figure out why that might be. And if that has any kind of meaning or anything. I am curious if it does. I feel like it probably does, even if it's a minor one. So yeah, that is kind of the window that I'm looking at, and I do find the movement of the Super GC interesting. I was also thinking about it, and I'm going to try to make this make sense. And I think I might have touched on this a little bit in the video yesterday. But I feel like, okay, I know I've mentioned before, made mention of reading a chart through different lenses. Kind of like shifting the perspective or shifting the focus or what have you. I feel like that almost might need to happen if you were to incorporate the Super GC into reading a chart. And I say that because it is so fucking far out in space. The Super GC is far out, right? I could see how we tie to that, perhaps through our galactic center. I could certainly see that, right? Like we are part of it, but it's so far out that it almost seems like if you were to incorporate the Super GC into reading, if you were to try to, you would need to look at it alongside the chart, right? Like you would read anything else. But it's also on its own level, if that makes sense, or on another level altogether. I feel like you would have to shift lenses as you were doing this. I may be making this more complicated than it is. That's always possible. But because I do think you can incorporate it into chart reading and chart weaving. I think you should. Probably. I think it probably should be. But I almost feel like because it is just so far out that perhaps it also needs to be read through another lens too. Now, this brings me to my next point. The research that we have done so far on the Galactic Center, on our Galactic Center, has been, it's been, anybody that's participated has had conjunctions to it, okay? So all of these, this tally, this percentage that I found, that I found from this, came from people that also have conjunctions to the GC. We're not, people that just have squares, say, or or stuff conjunct the Super Galactic Center. We haven't even brought them into play yet, right? But because I do feel like, and I have said this before, I do feel like people that have conjunctions to the Galactic Center and even oppositions to the Galactic Center are naturally more Galactic Center-y inclined. I do think they are. I think anybody can access it, but I do think people that have like the conjunctions and the oppositions, I do think that they are more tuned into it. And then there are other, like auxiliary things that continue in even more. But I do think that people that have conjunctions to the GC or oppositions to the GC are more tuned in different ways, but they are more tuned into it. I would say the same thing about things conjunct the Super Galactic Center. I can't say that about the oppositions yet, but I do feel like they probably are linked. But I don't know what is opposite the Super Galactic Center yet, so I don't really know how to apply it. But I would almost think that these would be important. Like, I almost feel like people like, okay, like let's say you didn't have anything conjunct the Galactic Center, but you did have conjunctions to the Super Galactic Center. And even conjunctions to the opposition to the to the Super Galactic Center. What might be the Super Galactic Anti-Center. You all, or people that have this, even if you don't have conjunctions to our GC, might be just as tapped in as well. I could see that being the case. But again, it feels like it's on some other level. It does feel like it's on some other level. Even if you have conjunctions to the GC and squares to the, and squares to the GC, conjunctions to the Super Galactic Center, they just feel like they're on different levels. I think you can read them together, but they do feel like they're on different levels. I'm still trying to flush all that out in my brain. But I will let everybody know when it eventually, not right now, but eventually I would like to look at people that have just squares to the GC or just conjunctions to the Super GC. Eventually. That might not be for a month or two. But eventually I would like to do that because I do think it's important. But yeah, I think eventually, probably sooner than later, this should probably start getting dived in, I should dive into it in a stronger way. So, but anyway, I'm going to get going. If anybody does want to participate in the research that's going on right now, you have conjunctions. If you happen to have conjunctions, even if you've got like conjunctions and squares, let me know. We are focusing, the bulk of the questionnaire though is about conjunctions, so I do need the people to have at least conjunctions or oppositions. But if you do happen to have a square involved or something conjunct the Super Galactic Center, let me know. Anyway, I'm gonna get going. But if you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck with Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Apatrono Astrology on Instagram. If you are wanting to follow and subscribe or like our videos or whatever the fuck people do on YouTube, find us at Let's Fuck with Astrology by searching for that in the YouTube search bar. If you do the right thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck with Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.